Tension in the kitchen, full script. Opening golden hour secrets. The golden hour light bleeds into the small apartment like syrup, casting long shadows across chipped counters and a cluttered table. The kitchen smells faintly of lavender and burnt toast, remnants of two lives perpetually bumping into each other. Steam rises from a forgotten mug on the windowsill, and somewhere in the distance, a neighbor's music drifts through thin walls. Lana stands by the sink, her sleeves rolled up and arms dusted in flour, lips pursed in concentration. She's not just making bread, she's making war. The dough refuses to cooperate, and in her silent frustration, she kneads harder. Her red hair catches the dying light, escaping from its messy bun in rebellious strands. She's wearing that crop top again, the burgundy one that makes her skin glow, paired with high-waisted jeans that have seen better days but somehow look perfect on her. Across the room, Casey leans against the fridge, sipping something dark from a chipped mug.
If you enjoy the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe as that greatly helps the channel.
Her gaze flicks lazily over Lana, a half-smirk tugging at her lips. She's dressed in her usual uniform of confidence, a white button-up with the sleeves pushed up, revealing forearms that have seen their share of bar shifts and camera equipment. Her dark hair falls in loose waves around her shoulders, and there's something almost predatory in the way she watches Lana work. Casey says, voice dripping with teasing charm, "You know we have a mixer, right?
Lana does not look up.
You also have a mouth, but you don't always need to use it."
Habit passe.
Then Casey laughs, low, amused, and a little surprised.
Festi this morning. Lana es schuldertans.
That voice, confident, velvet smooth, always 3 steps ahead, gets under her skin more than she likes to admit. It's the same voice that talks her through panic attacks about midterm presentations, the same voice that orders her favorite coffee without being asked, the same voice that whispers her name in the morning when she thinks Lana can't hear. They are roommates. That was the arrangement.
Strictly practical.
2 20-somethings in a painfully overpriced city apartment that they found on Craigslist after 3 weeks of couch surfing and increasingly desperate applications. Lana, the quietly ambitious culinary student who avoided confrontation like the plague and kept color-coded calendars for everything. Casey, the enigmatic bartender/freelance photographer who seemed to make life up as she went along and never met a rule she couldn't bend. They had established rules within the first week. Don't eat each other's groceries without asking. Don't use the last of the milk without replacing it. Don't bring random hookups home without warning. Keep the bathroom clean. Split utilities 50-50. Most importantly, don't get involved in each other's personal drama. But Casey was impossible. The kind of person who knew exactly how attractive she was and didn't apologize for it. She wore her button-ups half undone and walked around barefoot at all hours, leaving a trail of camera batteries, lens caps, and coffee rings in her wake. She had this way of making the most mundane conversations feel charged, like she was always saying something else beneath her words. Lana, on the other hand, found comfort in structure. Quiet mornings with her study notes spread across the kitchen table, handwritten recipes tucked into cookbooks, and a 5-year plan that she revised quarterly. She didn't have time for chaos, especially not the kind that wore expensive cologne and made her forget her own name when standing too close. But chaos had dimples.
En collarbone that cooked the light just right.
And a way of standing just a little too close in their shared kitchen, making the already tiny space feel impossibly smaller. Casey nods toward the stovetop and says, "You're burning it." Lana curses under her breath and rushes to pull the pan off the burner.
Smoke rises in accusatory tendril.
The scrambled eggs are officially a disaster, black on the bottom, still runny on top, a perfect metaphor for her current state of mind. "Why are you even in here?" she snaps, glaring over her shoulder. Casey holds up her mug with mock innocence. "Needed more coffee."
Lana knows better.
The coffee machine isn't even in the kitchen, it's on the side counter near the living room, a compromise they'd reached after a heated debate about counter space in their second week of living together. Casey had wandered in for the same reason she always did, to poke the bear. To see what would happen if she pushed just a little bit harder. "You don't have to act like you own the place," Lana mutters, scraping the ruined eggs into the trash with more force than necessary.
Kazé archabro, stepping closer.
Her bare feet make no sound on the cold tile. "I pay half the rent, don't I?" Her tone is light, but her eyes are sharp. There it is again, that constant game they play. Half flirtation, half battle of wills, entirely too much tension for 7 in the morning. Lana turns away and busies herself cleaning up, running the burned pan under scalding water. Steam rises around her face like a veil. Well, while you're lurking, make yourself useful and grab the butter from the fridge. Casey doesn't move. Instead, she comes up behind her, close enough that Lana can feel the warmth radiating from her body, close enough to catch the scent of her shampoo mixed with darkroom chemicals and something uniquely Casey. Casey whispers, "You always boss people around when you're flustered?"
Lana freeze.
The pan slips slightly in her wet hands, and she grips it tighter to keep from dropping it. Her pulse thunders in her ears, drowning out the sound of running water. She can smell Casey's cologne, something subtle and woodsy that probably costs more than Lana's textbooks, unfairly intoxicating and completely inappropriate for 7 in the morning. "I'm not flustered," she says, but her voice comes out tight and breathless. Casey laughs again, low and knowing, the sound vibrating through the small space between them. "Sure you're not." Then she steps back, like nothing happened. Just casually wanders toward the pantry and grabs the butter, tossing it lightly onto the counter next to Lana's abandoned flour disaster. "Here, chef," Casey says, and there's something almost fond in the way she says it. Lana doesn't respond. She can't. Her brain is short-circuiting, her skin still buzzing from the proximity. She hates that Casey knows exactly what effect she has on her. Hates that it's so obvious. Hates that she doesn't hate it as much as she should. Across the room, Casey watches her over the rim of her mug, dark eyes unreadable but definitely amused. Lana returns to the dough with renewed determination. She doesn't look up, but her hands tremble slightly as she tries to salvage what's left of her breakfast and her dignity. This isn't sustainable. The tension between them grows stronger every day, like a rubber band pulled tighter and tighter. And one day, it's going to snap. But not today. Today, Lana takes a shaky breath, rolls out the dough with unnecessary force, and pretends Casey isn't looking at her like she's the most fascinating puzzle in the world.
Chapter 2, Morning Confession.
The following morning arrives with the kind of stillness that feels intentional, like the universe is holding its breath. The usual clatter of pans and hum of Casey's vintage radio are missing, replaced by a quiet that settles over the apartment like fog. Even the neighbors seem subdued, their footsteps muffled through the thin walls. Lana stands by the stove again, always the stove, always trying to create something perfect in a space that feels increasingly chaotic. This time she's making coffee, stirring sugar into her favorite mug with slow, deliberate motions. Each swirl is an attempt to dissolve more than just sweetener. She's trying to burn away the memory of yesterday morning. The way Casey had stood behind her, close enough to count her freckles. The way her breath had ghosted across the back of her neck, raising goosebumps that had nothing to do with the apartment's perpetual chill. The way her voice had dipped into that dangerous register that made Lana's knees weak and her resolve weaker. Lana had rules for a reason. Structure kept her safe. Predictability meant no surprises, no heartbreak, no complications that could derail her carefully planned future. She had a 5-year plan, complete with color-coded charts and quarterly reviews. Falling for her roommate was definitely not on the schedule. She stares into her coffee cup, hoping the caffeine will burn the memory out of her bloodstream, when the bedroom door creaks open behind her. Casey emerges like something from a dream she doesn't want to wake up from. She's wearing loose gray sweatpants that hang low on her hips and an oversized t-shirt that slips off one shoulder, revealing the curve of her collarbone and a hint of the tattoo she got in college. Something about stars and navigation that Lana has never seen in full but thinks about more than she should. Her dark hair is piled into a messy bun, secured with what looks like a paintbrush, and her eyes are still soft with sleep. She looks unfairly beautiful for someone who probably went to bed at 3 in the morning editing photos. Lana glances away quickly, focusing intently on her coffee as if it holds the secrets of the universe.
Case meuble, voice rogue with sleep, morning. The single word sans un welcome chive daun lana espine.
There's something intimate about Casey's morning voice, all raspy and unguarded, like she's sharing a secret. Lana nods, keeping her back carefully turned. There's coffee. Made enough for both of us. She hadn't meant to. She told herself she was just making her usual single cup, but somehow her muscle memory had kicked in, measuring out grounds for 2 like she'd been doing for months without realizing it. There's a pause, then the sound of bare feet crossing the cold tile. Casey pours herself coffee into the mug Lana had unconsciously set out for her, the blue one with the chip on the handle that Casey claimed reminded her of the sky in her hometown. Casey says, genuine surprise coloring her voice, "You made enough for both of us." "Habit," Lana replies quickly. "Don't read into it." But Casey always does. It's her superpower and Lana's weakness. Casey doesn't just read between the lines, she lives there, finding meaning in every gesture, every glance, every accidentally on-purpose moment of consideration. They sit across from each other at the tiny kitchen table that came with the apartment, a battered thing with ring stains and initials carved into its surface by previous tenants. The silence between them feels heavier than usual, charged with everything they're not saying. Lana feels like every second stretches longer than it should, like time itself is conspiring to make this moment more significant than it needs to be. Casey takes a sip and gives her one of those looks, the kind that suggests she can see straight through all of Lana's carefully constructed defenses. "So, are we gonna talk about it?" Lana blinks, playing dumb even though they both know she's too smart for that game. "Talk about what?" Casey leans back in her chair, the picture of casual mischief, but there's something more serious lurking in her dark eyes. "Yesterday. You almost jumped out of your skin when I got close. You do that to annoy me." "Doi?" Casey asks, and her voice drops into that dangerous territory again. "I thought you liked a little heat in the kitchen." The double meaning isn't lost on either of them. Lana's cheeks flush, and she sets her mug down a little too hard, coffee sloshing dangerously close to the rim. "Don't start." Casey's smirk falters, just a little, and for a moment her carefully maintained facade cracks to reveal something more vulnerable underneath. "I'm not trying to mess with you, Lana. Not really." The honesty in her voice catches Lana off guard. She'd expected more teasing, more of Casey's signature deflection through humor. Instead, she gets sincerity, and somehow that's more dangerous than all the flirting in the world. "Then what are you doing?" Lana asks, and the question comes out sharper than she intended. It hangs in the air between them like a challenge, like a door that once opened can't be closed again. Casey stares at her for a long beat, and Lana can practically see the wheels turning behind her eyes. When she speaks, her voice is quieter, more careful. "I don't know. Maybe trying to figure out why you won't even look at me when I get close." Lana finally meets her gaze, really meets it, not the quick glances she usually allows herself. The intensity there takes her breath away. "Because I don't know what you want from me." Casey's expression softens, and suddenly she looks younger, more uncertain. The confident facade slips away, revealing someone who might be just as confused and scared as Lana is. "Maybe I don't either." The admission hangs between them like a bridge neither is sure they're brave enough to cross. The tension is no longer playful or teasing. It's something deeper, something raw and real and terrifying. Casey reaches across the table, her fingers brushing against Lana's, light, tentative, like she's testing the waters of a lake she's not sure is safe to swim in. Lana doesn't pull away. But she doesn't move forward either. She just sits there, paralyzed by possibility and fear in equal measure. "I don't do messy," she says quietly, the words escaping before she can stop them. Casey's smile is tinged with sadness and understanding. "You think this has to be messy?" "I live with you." "You flirt with anything that breathes." "You leave your camera battery in the fridge for no reason." "You have a different girl's number written on your hand every week." Lana's voice gains strength as she lists Casey's crimes against order and predictability. "This is already chaos." Casey laughs, a real one, surprised and delighted. "The fridge keeps the batteries cool. It extends their life." "That is not a thing." "It absolutely is a thing. I can show you the manual." Despite everything, Lana feels her mouth quirk upward. This is what Casey does. Finds ways to make her smile even in the middle of serious conversations, even when Lana is trying to build walls between them. Another beat of silence passes, and then Casey's voice drops lower, softer, more vulnerable than Lana has ever heard it. "Maybe I just like being close to you." The word hit Lana like a physical blow. Her heart skips, stutters, then begins racing double time. Her stomach twists with want and fear and the overwhelming urge to run. The part of her that lives by rules and schedules wants to flee, to barricade herself in her room with her textbooks and her 5-year plan. But there's another part, smaller, quieter, but growing stronger every day, that wants to stay. that wants to lean into this feeling instead of away from it. She stands abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor with a harsh sound that makes them both wince. I have class in an hour. Casey leans back, her expression shuttering closed again, becoming unreadable. The vulnerable moment passes as quickly as it came. Right. Wouldn't want you to be late for Chef Morrison's class. The fact that Casey knows her schedule, knows which professor she has and when, makes Lana's chest tight with something she doesn't want to examine too closely. Lana grabs her keys from the counter, her textbooks from the table, her jacket from the back of her chair. She's moving with the efficiency of someone fleeing a crime scene.
Lana. Quasi colzwen she's almost tous d'or.
She stops but doesn't turn around. That thing I said, about liking being close to you? Casey's voice is carefully neutral, but Lana can hear the thread of uncertainty running through it. I meant it. Lana's hand freezes on the door handle. For a moment, she considers turning around, walking back to that table, and saying all the things that are crowding in her throat. Instead, she opens the door and walks out into the hallway, Casey's words following her like a promise she's not sure she's ready to keep. Maybe I just like being close to you. The echo of those words will haunt her all day, through lecture notes and practical exams and conversations with classmates who seem to exist in a simpler world where attraction doesn't come with lease agreements and shared utility bills.
Chapter 3, The Space Between. 3 days pass like a helt brise.
3 days of careful choreography around each other in their small apartment, of conversations that start and stop before they can become meaningful, of stolen glances that are quickly looked away from. 3 days of Lana leaving for class earlier than necessary and Casey staying out later than usual, both of them trying to create space in a place that has none to give. But avoidance is impossible when you share 200 square feet and a single bathroom. Lana finds herself noticing things she trained herself to ignore. The way Casey hums while editing photos, usually something soft and jazzy that makes the apartment feel warmer. How she leaves little drawings on napkins when she's thinking, abstract shapes that somehow manage to be beautiful. The careful way she arranges her camera equipment, like each lens and filter is precious. Casey, for her part, seems to be noticing Lana too. She starts making coffee for both of them in the mornings, leaving Lana's mug in exactly the right spot by the window. She stops leaving her laundry in the communal pile and actually folds it, like she's trying to prove she can be the kind of person who fits into Lana's ordered world. The apartment feels like a stage where they're both performing versions of themselves, trying to be easier to love while simultaneously being terrified of what that love might cost them. On Thursday evening, Lana comes home from her evening shift at the campus coffee shop to find Casey sitting on their small balcony, camera in her lap, staring out at the city lights. She's wearing that soft gray sweater that makes her look smaller, more vulnerable, and her hair is down for once, falling in waves around her face.
Lana hesitat in the doorway.
They haven't really talked since the coffee conversation, haven't been alone in the same room for more than a few minutes at a time. But something about Casey's posture, the way she's holding herself, makes Lana pause instead of retreating to her room. Long day? Lana asks, stepping onto the narrow balcony. Casey looks up, and Lana is surprised to see exhaustion in her eyes. Not the physical tiredness of a long shift, but something deeper.
Got fired from the gallery gig.
What? Lana sits down in the plastic chair beside her without thinking. Why? Casey shrugs, but Lana can see the hurt she's trying to hide. Creative differences, they said. Apparently, my photos were too emotionally intense for their aesthetic. She makes air quotes, her voice bitter.
Translation. I don't take pretty picture of pretty things.
Lana has seen Casey's work. Has caught glimpses of it when Casey leaves her laptop open or prints developing on the kitchen table. They're stunning, raw and honest and full of feeling. The kind of photographs that make you stop and really see, not just look. They're idiots, Lana says fiercely. Your work is incredible. Casey turns to look at her, surprise flickering across her features. You've never said anything about my photos before. You've never seemed like you wanted me to. Lana fidgets with the sleeve of her cardigan. But I've seen them.
The ones you leave around.
They make me feel things. Something shifts in Casey's expression. The wall she's been maintaining for the past 3 days cracks just slightly.
What kind of things?
Lana looks out at the city sprawling below them, lights twinkling like earthbound stars. Like the world is bigger and smaller at the same time. Like there are stories everywhere if you just know how to look. They sit in silence for a moment, and Lana realizes this is the longest conversation they've had since the kitchen incident. It feels different out here, with the night air cool against their skin and the space of the city spread out before them. Less charged, more honest. I'm scared, Casey says suddenly, so quietly Lana almost misses it. Of what?
Kazé s'en twist in her lap.
Of messing this up.
What verdicis?
She gestures vaguely between them. You're the first person I've lived with who doesn't drive me completely insane. You make coffee like it's an art form. You leave little notes on the grocery list when we're out of something, even though you could just text me. You sing in the shower and think I can't hear you, but I can, and it's the best part of my day.
L'anaès briscach. Kazé.
I know you have your 5-year plan, Casey continues, and I know I'm probably not in it. I don't even have a 5-day plan most of the time. But I like what we have here.
I like coming home to you humming in the kitchen.
I like that you steal my hoodies and pretend you don't. I like that you're the first person I want to talk to when something good happens or when everything falls apart. The confession hangs between them like a gift Lana isn't sure she deserves. You are in it, she says before she can stop herself.
Kazé blank.
What? My 5-year plan.
You're in it.
Lana's cheeks burn, but she forces herself to keep talking. I know it's crazy. I know I'm supposed to be focused on school and my career and being independent. But somehow, when I imagine my future, you're there. Making coffee that's too strong and leaving camera equipment in weird places and taking pictures that make me see the world differently. Casey stares at her, and Lana can see her processing this information, can almost hear the wheels turning. That's terrifying, Casey says finally. I know. I don't know how to be someone's future. I don't know how to let someone into mine. They look at each other across the small space of the balcony, and Lana feels like they're standing at the edge of something vast and unknowable. One step forward and everything changes. One step back and they return to careful choreography and stolen glances. Casey reaches across the space between their chairs and takes Lana's hand. Her fingers are cold from the night air, but her touch is warm and steady and sure. Maybe we figure it out together, she says. Lana looks down at their joined hands, at the way Casey's fingers fit perfectly between hers, and thinks that maybe some things don't need to be planned 5 years in advance. Maybe some things are worth the risk of not knowing how they'll end.
Ok, she whispers.
It's not a declaration of love or a promise of forever. But it's a beginning, and sometimes that's enough.
Chapter 4, Slow burn.
The morning after their balcony conversation, something shifts. Not dramatically, they're still careful around each other, still testing the boundaries of this new territory they've entered. But there's a softness now that wasn't there before, a permission to be closer that they're both learning how to use. Lana wakes to the smell of actual breakfast, not just coffee and whatever she can grab on her way out the door, but eggs and toast and what smells like bacon. She emerges from her room in her pajamas, hair a mess, and finds Casey at the stove wearing an apron that says, "Kiss the cook," that definitely wasn't in their kitchen yesterday. Where did that come from? Lana asks, pointing at the apron. Casey grins, looking pleased with herself. Found it at that vintage shop on 5th Street. Thought it was appropriate for our kitchen situation. The words "our kitchen" send a little thrill through Lana that she tries to ignore. Casey has lived here for 8 months, but this is the first time she's claimed ownership of the space. You don't cook, Lana observes, accepting the plate Casey hands her. I'm learning. Figured if I'm going to be in someone's 5-year plan, I should probably contribute more than just coffee and camera equipment. Casey's cheeks are slightly pink, like she's embarrassed by her own thoughtfulness. The eggs are only slightly burned, and the toast is perfectly golden. It's not gourmet, but it's made with care, and that makes it taste better than anything Lana has eaten in weeks. This is good, she says, and means it. Casey beams like she's just won a James Beard Award. They eat together at the table, not talking much but comfortable in the silence. When Casey reaches across to steal a piece of Lana's toast, Lana doesn't protest. When Lana automatically refills Casey's coffee without being asked, Casey doesn't comment, but Lana catches her smile.
Small step.
Safe steps. Over the next week, they develop new rhythms. Casey starts leaving her photos spread across the kitchen table, and Lana actually looks at them, offers opinions, asks questions. Lana begins cooking dinner most nights, making enough for two without making a big deal about it. They watch movies together on Casey's laptop, sharing earbuds and unconsciously leaning closer together as the stories unfold. It's domestic in a way that feels both foreign and natural. Like they're playing house, but the feelings underneath are startlingly real. Friday night, Lana is stressed about a practical exam the following week. She's been practicing the same knife cuts over and over, filling their tiny counter with precisely diced vegetables that they'll never be able to eat before they go bad. Casey watches from her spot at the table, editing photos on her laptop. "You know you've been dicing that onion for 20 minutes?" she says without looking up. "I need to get it perfect," Lana mutters, wiping her eyes with the back of her wrist. Chef Morrison is looking for any excuse to fail half the class.
Let me see.
Before Lana can protest, Casey is behind her, looking over her shoulder at the cutting board. Her presence is warm and steady, and Lana finds herself relaxing despite her anxiety. "These look perfect to me," Casey says softly.
What est the actual problème here?
Lana sets down her knife and leans back against Casey's chest without really thinking about it. Casey's arms come up automatically to wrap around her waist, and Lana lets herself have this moment of comfort. "I don't know," she admits. I need to be perfect at this. It's the only thing I'm good at." Casey's chin rests on top of her head. "That's not true. You're good at lots of things. You're good at making people feel at home. You're good at remembering what kind of coffee I like and buying it even though it costs more than the regular stuff. You're good at singing in the shower loud enough to make me smile even when I'm having the worst day." Lana closes her eyes and lets herself absorb the words, the warmth of Casey's body against hers, the feeling of safety that comes with being held.
I'm scared I'm not good enough, she whispers.
"For culinary school, for any of this." "You are," Casey says with quiet certainty. "You're more than good enough." They stand like that for several minutes, swaying slightly to music only they can hear. When Lana finally turns around in Casey's arms, they're close enough to count each other's freckles, close enough that a shift in the wind would bring their lips together. Neither of them moves. They just look at each other, cataloging details, memorizing the moment. "This is dangerous," Lana says softly. "I know. We're roommates. I know. If this goes wrong, then we'll figure it out." Casey's hand comes up to cup Lana's cheek. "But what if it goes right?" The question hangs between them like a promise and a dare all at once. Lana doesn't answer with words. Instead, she rises up on her toes and kisses Casey, soft and tentative and sweet. It's nothing like the frantic, passionate kiss she's imagined in her weaker moments. It's gentle and questioning, a conversation held entirely with the touch of lips and the soft exhale of breath. Casey kisses her back just as carefully, like Lana is something precious that might break if handled too roughly. Her hands frame Lana's face, thumbs stroking across her cheekbones, and Lana thinks distantly that she's never been kissed like this before, like she's the answer to a question Casey has been asking her whole life. When they break apart, they don't go far. Their foreheads rest together, sharing breath and possibility. "That was..." Lana starts, then trails off. "Yeah," Casey agrees. They don't talk about what it means or where they go from here. Instead, they finish cleaning up the kitchen together, moving around each other with new awareness, stealing glances and small smiles. That night, Lana lies in her bed staring at the ceiling, her lips still tingling from Casey's kiss. Next door, she can hear Casey moving around, probably editing photos or organizing her equipment. The apartment has never felt smaller or more full of possibility.
Chapter 5, The Almost. The qui change everything and nothing all at once.
They don't talk about it the next morning. Casey makes coffee and Lana makes toast, and they eat in comfortable silence, but there's an electricity in the air that wasn't there before. Every accidental touch sends sparks up Lana's arm. Every shared glance lingers a beat too long. Lana catches herself watching Casey's hands as she lifts her coffee mug, remembering how they felt against her face. Casey finds excuses to brush past her in the narrow kitchen, and each contact leaves Lana breathless. They're dancing around each other, testing boundaries, seeing how close they can get before one of them breaks.
I tapant 3 des latte.
Lana is running late for her evening class, rushing around the apartment trying to find her textbook and her notes and her lucky pen that she uses for every exam. She's stressed and frazzled, her hair escaping from its ponytail in rebellious curls. "Has anyone seen my copy of On Food and Cooking?" she calls out, even though Casey is the only other person who could have moved it. "Kitchen counter," Casey calls back from her room. "Under the stack of takeout menus." Lana rushes to the kitchen and finds the book exactly where Casey said it would be. As she grabs it, several loose papers flutter to the floor, her notes from yesterday's lecture, covered in her careful handwriting and detailed diagrams. She's kneeling on the floor, trying to gather everything up, when Casey appears in the doorway. "You okay?" Casey asks, taking in Lana's frazzled state. "I'm fine, I'm just..." Lana tries to stand up too quickly, notes still scattered around her feet, and promptly trips over her own bag. Casey catches her, strong hands gripping Lana's upper arms, pulling her upright and close. Very close. Close enough that Lana can see the gold flecks in Casey's dark eyes, close enough to count her eyelashes. They freeze like that, bodies pressed together, Casey's hands still gripping Lana's arms, Lana's hands somehow ending up flat against Casey's chest. The air between them crackles with tension. "You're always catching me," Lana says breathlessly. Casey's thumb strokes across her arm, a barely there touch that sends shivers through Lana's entire body.
"You're always falling."
It's meant to be teasing, but Casey's voice comes out rough, laden with meaning that has nothing to do with physical clumsiness and everything to do with the way they keep tumbling toward each other despite all their careful boundaries. Lana looks up into Casey's face and sees her own want reflected there, the same confusion, the same longing, the same fear of what they're building between them. "Casey," she whispers, and it comes out like a prayer. Casey's hands slide from her arms to her waist, fingers spreading across her ribs like she's trying to memorize the shape of her. "Tell me to stop." But Lana can't. Won't. Instead, she rises up on her toes and kisses Casey again, harder this time, with more certainty. Casey responds immediately, pulling her closer, one hand tangling in her hair while the other presses against the small of her back. This kiss is different from their first, hungrier, more urgent. It's a conversation they've been having in glances and touches and careful words, finally spoken aloud in the language of lips and teeth and tongues. Lana loses herself in it, in the taste of Casey's coffee and the softness of her mouth and the way she makes small sounds of appreciation when Lana does something she likes. She's never been kissed like this before, like she's the most important thing in the world, like Casey has been waiting her whole life for this moment. They're pressed against the kitchen counter now, Casey's back against the cabinet, Lana crowding into her space like she can't get close enough. Casey's hands are everywhere, in her hair on her waist, tracing the line of her spine through her thin sweater. Lana is about to suggest they move somewhere more comfortable when her phone buzzes aggressively in her back pocket. They break apart, both breathing hard, both looking slightly stunned. Lana's phone buzzes again, and reality comes crashing back. "My class," she gasps, fumbling for her phone. "I'm supposed to be there in 10 minutes. Casey nods. They both share a final moment reflecting their future.